Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention.
This is Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington. Let me put a pause on that. Let's say that one more time. I can't believe it, Charles. Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is back in the building. Charles, let's give him a hand.
Oh, we gotta take a little pause real quick.
Let's just
hold on. Let me make sure this mic.
The king is here. The king is here.
The king has his cup. I just say it straight right. I say it like that. So Charles's cup is bigger than mine, but I got a cup.
My cup has been empty to be restocked on a break.
I'm restocking mine as well.
Yes, we kid because we care. And for those that celebrate Happy Kwanzaa, we know it is day 4 in regards to Ujamaa, which is cooperative economics, which for those that know me, know that really hits home for me. That's one of the practices I've done for a long time. So it's appropriate today to me to celebrate with my colleagues right here, my co-hosts, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, who have certainly worked with me economically to make sure that we can bring you this show in various facets over the years. And also to the lab listeners, glad to have you here. We're going to do you one of the year ending as we do it with the new year coming in, 2023. Man, it's hard to imagine that, we started all this and it's 2023. 20 years of the poll rankings and 20 years of successful work as we will bring to you basketball more. But with this episode today, we're going to go down our top 10 HBCU sports inspired list. So we're going to see where everybody fits between Mike and Charles. We'll do that into the second segment and take it through the rest of the show. But before we do that, there's some news out there that we need to shake out and stir with everybody in terms of what's going on. So again, to our live listeners, I just wanted to give you a little shout out and say thank you for the support of this entire year and years before that for many that's really followed us for multiple years, certainly those that have jumped on board. And this year has been one of our best yet, at least according to all metrics, and hope that the lab listeners believe the same way. So I want to shout out Jazzy Faye, Carl Moore, Chuck Hunt, saying good evening, Bobby Gilbert Jr., wanted to connect with every HBCU baseball program. We are Florida Minority Baseball Alliance with thousands of athletes ready for college baseball. Let's get to work and make our programs competitive. Appreciate you, Bobby. Keep up the great work. See you putting the grind out there, and thanks for the support. Wanted to make sure we got that out for the people. Again, make sure you support Florida Minority Baseball Alliance. Ruben Hogan, Jazzy says, thank you. Ricky Burton. So just wanted to give a shout out to a couple of folks out there. I know it's many more. We'll do that throughout the show, hopefully give you some acknowledgments on this year's successful year. With that being said, Mike, there's a change. Change is coming. It's consistent. Since you've been here, we've named a couple of coaches. The latest one, I should say, is one Ed Reed, Hall of Famer. Baltimore Ravens, where he spent most of the time, but, obviously with the Texans, out of New Orleans, Miami, Hurricane, in terms of his college days. But now he is taking his luggage, if you would, in hard hat as the head coach of Bethune-Cookman Wildcats in the SWAC Eastern Division over there with some of the big boys, if you would, in terms of how they dominated the SWAC of late, including Jackson State and Florida A&M, which would be their rival for anybody that's stuck in the last year in terms of the classic Florida Blue. What are your thoughts on this hire?
Man, for those of you who are an Ed Reed fan, whether you are SWAC, whether you are MEAC, whether you are SIS, you have to love this. I think it's absolutely great hire, and I don't say that lightly. Number one, the kids will learn so much from him. And when you heard rumors, and to be honest, I was like, is Bethune gonna make this happen? Is it gonna make this happen? And you had to know that there were some powers and some alumni money that stepped up to the plate, and kudos to them for making this happen. Those are initial thoughts that come to the fray. Now the business begins. Imagine what he's going to do for and changing the footprint of recruiting in the state of Florida. You're talking about somebody who's from Florida, played in Miami, has a well-known reputation. He spent time with Peyton Manning over the last year or so. So he has a lot of knowledge, a bag of knowledge bringing to the table. Great hire. Now, next step, let's get to work, baby. So those are my thoughts when bringing him to it. I love his hairdo. I think he went to the Dr. Cavil School of Cosmetology and how to wear hair. So, he's branded himself. So kudos to Bethune for making this happen. It's too bad somebody got to play him, but you're talking about one of the best free safeties to ever walk on that field, and I'm happy for Bethune and the SWAC.
Man, first thing came to mind after I got a chance to think about this a little bit. I was like, obviously, part of what you think of recruiting is Florida, particularly Miami area. Then I was like, that's right, New Orleans, Louisiana, maybe dipping into some Mississippi. I was like, he spent some time in Texas with the Texans, Houston. I said, oh, yeah. Then you got a fertile ground in Baltimore as well. I was like, ooh, that could be a nice quadri of different places where he could dip his toe in if you want and see if he can pluck out some talented recruits. I was like, fascinating when you think about that, just from that area. Obviously, another part that you got to get on is the staff. What is the staff going to look like? That's always important. You'd imagine that he'll be able to get a pretty good staff. Last thing, looks like Charles wanted to chime in here, so I give him a chance to share some thoughts on it as well. Last thing I want to say, though, is I do appreciate his selection in terms of his hairstyles. Anybody that has the ability to navigate the world space and be able to do that with your hair goes straight to the top of my list in terms of accuracy. It's extremely important to make sure I get that out. Charles?
I started thinking about this hire the other day, and I was thinking, what if this was 2019? Would we still be in the mind frame of this is a great hire? I mean, at some point, we have to acknowledge, by looking at the success of Coach Prime, we can kind of take a step back and be like, you know what? This might not be a bad move. This might be a move that benefits Bethune-Cookman, because, like I mentioned on Tuesday, rolling the dice with regards to Ed Reed, where Bethune's program is right now is exactly how Jackson State was looking prior to 2020. So it makes a lot of sense to go in this direction and see what happens. Roll the dice. You never know.
I like the way you said the roll the dice. Mike just put it out there and said great hire. I'm always reluctant in that. And this is the reason it's never one person in terms of an organization. I've always said this, and I'll blow my horn on this until I get run out of here. Organizations win championships. And he could be the greatest in terms of motivator. He can know X's and O's more than what any of us would think. He could train really well in his climb in terms of his coaching pedigree, be strong. He can bring on a great staff. But if he's not going to get support from the organization in terms of this institution, obviously from the alumni, that's important. In terms of his athletic director, in regards to giving him whatever things they can. I'm not saying that you got to give everything, but at least being on the same page And most importantly, from the president to the board, all these individuals have to be on the same page. You would think in the most for this to happen that they are, but we've learned from past experiences, just because you hear an announcement like this doesn't mean everybody is on the same page. And more importantly, can you get everybody to stay on the same page? And that is the challenge of any organization, professional, college, P5, G5, FCS, HBCU, FCS, Division II, NIA. Everybody has to be on the same page as much as possible for as long as possible for something like this to work. I did want to kind of put that cherry on the top. Where my reservation comes from has nothing to do with him as an individual or what I would suggest he can do. It's about organization. And until we understand that, it'll be fascinating to see how these things go. Mike, did you want to add something quickly?
Yeah, I think you hit on a important point. Now the process begins, really. And how he gets along, what's the relationship with the administration, with the stakeholders? How does he engage with the alumni base? What's that trail look like? I say it's a good hire, and you're right. Organizations definitely make great teams, but there's usually one or two central figures that are either the face of the organization, the quote unquote leader, the one that is more of a catalyst in the organization, and he's that catalyst. And I think he's enough to bring about change. And that's why I said, now let's get to work. With that comes, what does the support look like? What are the next steps? Is he going to have what's that relationship going to look like 6 months down the line with the relation? You have to know that was talked about in the hiring process. And you hope that some of those things were ironed out. You hope some of those things were addressed. But I am curious to see how that in month 6, in month 9, in month 12. But I think as far as the pure hire and bringing in a face in a place where he can make the most difference, that's where I can say that's a good hire.
Top down is Bethune-Redding.
Yeah. Yep.
Top down.
Exactly. With that being said, we have at least one hire left at the FCS level. North Carolina A&T Aggies. They made a late change and it's been quiet. Obviously, part of that is because of the Christmas holidays. But with that being said, you go down to the Delta, Mississippi Valley State Delta Devils to be exact. They have made their decision in terms of the next individual to lead the HBCU football program, which is Kendrick Wade, head coach, has some coaching experience. He actually has alumni in terms of being a Delta Devil. So that's interesting that they went that route in terms of having somebody that you would imagine can get the support from alumni, certainly understands the way of the land in their parts. He's coming over from a community college. So it'll be interesting to see if he'll be able to navigate that space with a lot of people looking at transfers in general, but particularly going into the JUCO ranks to see what that looks like with the transfer portal. Starting with you, Charles, what are your thoughts in terms of this hire?
Well, he's a Delta Devil. He's coming over from a very winning program over there at Delta State. So when you talk about bringing that Division II playoff experience to Mississippi Valley State, we'll see what this hire means. This is Hakeem McClellan's first big hire, or second big hire, I should say, over there at Mississippi Valley State with regards to bringing in his football coach. And, he's studied under of course, Ashley Robinson. So, we'll see what things the Mississippi Valley State administration can provide this athletic support. What can they do for this football team to help it become more successful? It is a tough road to navigate at Mississippi Valley State, but looks like they got the guy, and they are pitchfork down, ready to go with this young man. So we'll see what Kendrick Wade can do as Valley's football coach.
Mike, this is your valley. I think you've learned the best of that the last 2 weeks.
Man,
but the coach that has done that, he's now you got
my New Year's resolution is I'm gonna leave Valley alone. After 2 years in a row with PV and a couple other, I'm just gonna leave Valley alone. So no, I think it was an interesting but different choice, good choice. You have somebody from Mississippi, somebody who if you read all the press clippings, who wants the job. He said, I dreamed of this position. I want this job. Younger, has a history at Delta State, has a winning tradition, and you wonder how much support, I guess, being as new to the SWAC as he would seemingly be, how much support is he going to get? That's question. That's some of the questions I had, with the Reed hire. But here is a guy stepping in the position. Mississippi Valley is seemingly kind of on their way up. How much support is he going to get? What's his coaching staff going to look like, and how much of a dent is he going to make in the recruiting game? But being that he's a Mississippi guy, you think he have somewhat of a hold on some of that vast array of Mississippi talent you got in the state. Being that you got 4 or 5 of the schools pulling in it, how much of a dent is he going to make in that area as well? So I think it's a good move for Mississippi Valley. Player, Mississippi all in his vein. He got Mississippi coming all in his blood and everything. He probably wake up with, Mississippi green. He wake up, innovative. Seemingly because that's his likelihood. But now you got your guy. What kind of support are you going to give him now going forward? So.
Before we go to this break, Edward D. Moore said, Valley? Are we talking about Valley? There you go, Mike. I laid it out for you. So somebody gonna take up
the mantle.
Yeah, we'll see if it turns the tide on them. Because Mike said he leaving that in 2022.
I'm 2023. I'm gonna leave it alone.
This is Dr. Ville inside the HBCU Sports Lab. It looks like one of us has learned a lesson inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We'll be right back after this break, and we'll get into our year-end review. I want to see if these guys have any of the programs that I had that did make my top 10. I want to see if any of these made their top 10, and we'll get into the final top 10, if you would, in the second half of the show. But stick back. Let's get into it in our next segment.
You hungry for authentic Caribbean food? Like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
So we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell them mama hungry.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention.
This is Dr. Ville's inside HBCU Sports Lab. let's get into it. These are some of the moments that did not make my top 10. I want to see if they made yours as we get into it. So one of them was North Carolina A&T, as they were going for the NCAA Outdoor Track and Field. Obviously, they had a great finish from the indoors, so I kind of put those together. And I thought, obviously, they didn't quite have the finish that they were looking for in terms of championship, particularly what they were able to do in 2021. But they still had a great foundation in terms of making it to the NCAA and getting some first-place finishes. Overall, still finished top 10 in terms of that. Did the North Carolina A&T track and field men's women's program? We'll put that together. Indoor, outdoor, did both or either one of those make your top 10 list, Mike?
Yes, they were my. They were still my number 10.
Okay, Charles.
Actually, that actually was within my top 10. I had to go back and kind of take a look at last spring and things of that nature. But yeah, that was definitely groundbreaking, if you will, for North Carolina A&T track and field.
Yep.
Look at that, man. I thought I was gonna stop y'all. Y'all, okay, I see where we're going with this. Let me go with this. This one was off the board a little bit. Coppin State wins 2022 MEAC baseball championship, the first one, and essentially the last one for the MEAC, at least for a while, because all the 4 baseball programs that still participate within the MEAC have now moved and will play baseball in terms of Northeast Conference, NEC. So starting with you, Charles, did Coppin State wins 2022 MEAC baseball championship? Did that make it?
That did not make it. That is actually a really good one. When I went back to the spring, I went back to February. March. Jackson State women's basketball taking on LSU. That was a huge one for me in the near upset of LSU in the first round. So that was where I settled in there and moved up from there.
That makes sense. So you had Jackson State women's championship in terms of SWAC women's tournaments, as well as the near upset. Certainly had everybody excited about going down the stretch with Baylor. I mean, in terms of LSU, previous Baylor coach Mulkey was coaching now at LSU. Fascinating matchup there. Don't tell us where you put it in the top 10, but you had that in the top 10. I see that. Mike, did you have Coppin State win MEAC baseball championship? Did you have that in your top 10? Did it make your list?
Yes, I had them tied with Alabama State.
I don't think Mike cheated. He looked at my list.
I had Alabama State and Coppin State, both winning the baseball championships respectively as 10A, 10B. I had Coppin State as 10A, and I can show you my thing so you think I'm not cheating. So, because I know how you are, Dr. Cavil. You a professor. You're going to be like, show me your notes. Show me your data. Show me your research.
So no. I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to turn you into provost office.
Hey, I know how you are with them papers. Let me see your dad. Let me see your paper.
Well, I got another one for you I want us to look at. I went to the women's side in terms of Howard women softball championship as they get it done. I had them outside of my top 10, and I'm curious, did it make your top 10? This is their second championship in terms of softball, so great run in terms of what they were able to do. Outlasting in terms of getting it done. Howard finished 31-22 as they did this championship run, 15-7 on the season. They were extremely excited, as you imagine, getting it done in terms of women's Howard's softball. Something to think about in terms of what the football team did. Maybe it's, inclination of what would happen in the fall in terms of them getting it done in the spring of 2022. Mike? Softball, Howard, did they make your top 10?
No, they were somewhere 11 or 12.
he said no.
Nope.
Come on, man. Give the women some love. Charles, you already gave the women of Jackson State some love. Do you have any rules for the women of Howard?
Howard softball this year did not make my top 10. But that's a good one, Doc.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
But they,
I'm gonna
they
sneak this one in here. We're gonna get some participation. I'm gonna sneak this one in here. Edward Moore says FAMU volleyball winning the first SWAC championship for FAMU.
So go.
that one is on my list. That one is on my list. Including their player Washington setting a record for the number of kills. I remember that because she got my last name and she got my favorite stat, kills. So that's in my top 10. The FAMU volleyball.
Nice. I didn't have them in my top 10. I like that. Good job, Edward D. Moore. Everybody else chime in and let me know your top 10. We'll talk about it on here. Lonnie Shaw says Lennon Blow, Davis Shaw, Stanford coach. Oh, yeah, I see what you're doing there. All right. Good in there. In terms of another one, top 10, Prairie View A&M delivers knockout, wins SWAC softball championship. Obviously, I was watching this one and got through that, and that grand slam really did Alabama State in. Pretty big win. This is a team that started off, 0-19 the season, to give you some just how far they really pushed it and got in the tournament. Closed out the season pretty strong, but what they did in the tournament was quite amazing. They went on a run, relatively young team, got it done, beating Alabama State that many people saw getting it done, but they knocked off both of the top seeds to do it. Charles, did you have Prairie View A&M women softball team in the top 10?
I'm staying on the diamond, but it wasn't Prairie View women's softball team. For me, that was an epic SWAC championship baseball with Alabama State and Southern. To me, it was every bit as exciting as the 2021 SWAC baseball championship, where you had Southern and Jackson State going toe-to-toe. But, in terms of an encore, Alabama State and Southern, that was a tremendous SWAC baseball championship for me. I enjoyed that thoroughly. And Alabama State, they fought it and slugged it out and got the W, but that made my top 10.
Nice. I see that. Mike, did you have Prairie View A&M's women's softball in your top 10?
I did, only because I'm a little closer to it, and I know they started off the season 0-1,000,000, and they came back and won the SWAC championship. They were right there with the Alabama State Southern baseball championship. So all of my diamond sports are pretty much clustered together.
Good stuff. They are already trying to name the A&T coach. This is good stuff going on back in the blog in terms of who's going to be the next coach. I know what I heard. A couple of coaches, their names are out there, and they like, I hadn't been contacted by A&T, so I'm like, interesting.
Oh, well, this is interesting. Okay,
that's what I said. Let me go with Dr. Roger Holmes. He shouted out North Carolina A&T. As I said, I had him outside of my top 10. I want to know, where would you put him in your top 10, Dr. Holmes, since you brought out A&T? Yes, they didn't do number one program, but number one HBCU program in 2022. I would agree with that, as they've dominated the ranks over the last couple of years. Where would you have them in your top 10? Any other team that you want to mention? I'm going to start with you, Charles, that honorable mention did make your top 10, but you think deserve some mention being outside of your top 10 before we get into those top 10 numbers?
Being outside of top 10, Jackson State's cross-country team. I thought that was major for them with regards to where they have been as a program, and you've seen them fight. And for them to get a SWAC championship in cross country, I thought that was huge for Coach Mark Thorne and his program as they go forward. But just outside my top 10.
There you go. Mike, same question. What teams outside of your top 10 that could make that top 10? I know you said you're tied at 10. But do you have anybody that you wanted to do almost like an honorable mention? Didn't quite make the top 10, but you want to say some kudos, good season. Should be mentioned.
After Prairie View swept it for 3 years straight, Texas Southern sweeps the 2022 men's and women's golf championships. That was outside of my top 10, but I felt it was worthy to mention.
Good stuff. We'll be right back after this break as we got those honorable mentions in there. Mine that were outside of the top 10. Some of mine outside of the top 10, as you see, made their top 10 list. Let's see what my top 10 and see where we agree or disagree. We'll come back after this break and give you 10 through 6. countdown for 2023. We're doing it right here on Dr. Who's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Stick with us. We'll be back after this quick break.
Shop Velvet Online Women's Boutique to spice up your closet with trendy, unique looks. We have fashionable and chic looks at very affordable prices. Velvet Boutique offers free shipping all year long on all orders. Shop online at www.melvetboutique.com. That's www.melvetboutique.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. Shop Velvet Online Women's Boutique.
From now,
Compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Let's get back into it as we see our top 10 list. I'm going to give you my top 10 and see where it fits in with these gentlemen. See how far off base they are. You know, it couldn't be me. Oh, maybe not so much. With that being said, continue to give us your top 10. I see Roger Holmes said A&T, he would have had it 8. Edwin B. Moore says, as much as it hurt, as I talked about, that he would have JSU's football undefeated regular season as a top 10. I like that. Edwin D. Moore, tell me where you would have put him in the top 10. What's your actual number? Great stuff. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. In terms of what these things look like.
I agree with A&T, being in, because they were my number 7 actually. And if you look at the month of June and lump all of those activities, you know, 3 of the 4 Big South track and field year honors, father and son, one last honor, Aggie Pride displayed at the United States track and field. They owned the second half of the month of June this year. So for that reason, they were number 7. So whoever our listener was that said they were number 8, that's right where I had them in my list.
That's Dr. Holmes. Dr. Holmes on it. I give him credit. I'm going to go to you, Charles, because you want to jump in here, but I want to give Dr. Holmes. He did his 10, 9, and 8. He had 10, FAMU volleyball. Number 9, SWAC baseball tournament. Number 8, North Carolina A&T. As I get ready to reveal mine, Charles, what were you going to say?
You know, I didn't have a particular ranking, but I thought what made my top 10 was Amisha Williams-Holiday being drafted in the WNBA from Jackson State women's basketball team. I thought that was huge. And Mike, you had mentioned as we went to June, you also had NFL draft pick. You had James Houston that was drafted in NFL by the Detroit Lions. So I thought those were 2 significant things as we started getting into the summer months. That was pretty big for HBCU.
No doubt. North Carolina Central defensive back just had
North Carolina Kobe Durant,
Durant, and the play that Durant shouted out him on the basketball side, told him must be his cousin, so he got some love out there as well. And then he's showing off, as you've seen, just like you saw coming off the practice squad in terms of James Houston, what he was able to do his first game. Well represented. Good stuff. At number 10, Dr. Cavil had on the list, Norfolk State wins 2022 men's basketball championship. I'm going to put that in the fact that they also went 2-0 in Chris Paul's basketball class. I'm going to lump that all together. One of the best basketball programs out there at Norfolk State, and they continue to get it done. Also, remember, he coached the HBCU United. They went on a run that captured everybody's imagination during the summer as well. So I'm putting it all together in terms of Norfolk State. I have them at number 10. Bringing us to number 9. I have the Hornets claim first SWAC title since 2016. They clinched the regular season berth for the NCAA tournament. The game they had was a classic. I happened to be in there, so probably a little biased there. I was in the baseball park. 14 innings, Bases loaded, turn the double play, basically close out the game to get the victory. Alabama State defeats Southern, who won it last year in the thrilling matchup. And Southern just finds a way to continue to push. They go through the tournament, get it done. But Alabama State represents for the East Division, the pick East Division in baseball off the mats. Great games by FAMU playing in. So it was a really good tournament. I had my son with me, so that was one of the reasons that it also stuck with me. That was one of our trips. We got to go solo and do our thing, staying in the hotel, going to Negro League Museum, Southern Museum, I should say, down there in Birmingham. That's attached to the ballpark out there. So it was so much fun. But I had them at number 9. And number 8, going a little bit off of the field, I combined these two. I had College Game Day coming to Jackson versus the Southern game, as well as Deion Sanders with Good Morning and Jackson State with the Good Morning America, GMA, as they like to say. Obviously, they went to FAMU as well, but I put that as a collective in terms of College Game Day and Good Morning America, descending on Jackson for Jackson State University, which got a lot of noise in a lot of ways, appropriately so. So I'm going to go number 7, March Madness, Texas Southern basketball program with a big win in terms of not only getting it done in the SWAC tournament, but I combined this also with the fact that they got first 4, a win in the tournament. Texas A&M Corpus Christi 76-67, second year in a row that they got this done. So a lot of accolades for Texas Southern University in terms of getting it done. So they are my number 7. Number 6, as we finish this out and get what these gentlemen think, I'm going to go off the radar. Had to give this team some love. Obviously, during the time when it happened, it kind of snuck up on some folks. Then it got a lot of the blaze for HBCU. Talladega battled Loyola for the 2022 NAIA, I should say, men's basketball championship. Talladega came into that game 32-5 with an overtime thriller against Thomas More. In that matchup, Loyola was 36-1. That coming out of the same division in the team that defeated Talladega twice, if you would, during that year was Loyola. So it was a tough matchup. Didn't get it done in the championship game, played close for a half, and then fell away. But I have them as a 6. I wanted to make sure that we get some love to NIA out there. Talladega, oddly enough, Coach leaves, goes to Langston, and he has Langston that is undefeated, top 10 program at this time. To see what this means. Can he cut down the nets this year with Langston Lions, which certainly would be a top 10 next year. But that's my 10 through 6. Let me give it to you again and let y'all have it. Tell me where you feel different. Teams too high, shouldn't be in there, what have you. At number 10, Norfolk State wins in the MEAC men's basketball tournament with some other things I told you about. Hornets in terms of the SWAC baseball championship. 8, College Game Day, Good Morning America coming to Jackson State. And number 7, Texas Southern win in the first 4 NCAA tournament, as well as number 6, Talladega making it to the NAIA men's basketball championship. Charles, what do you say about my 6 through 10?
I think ESPN Game Day for me is a little higher. That's a huge part of the Saturday morning staple of college football fans, and to have that come to that Jackson State Southern game, that was huge for the branding of HBCU football, huge for the branding of obviously Jackson State as well, but for the world to see the Jackson State Southern matchup, I thought was huge. So for me, that was a little bit higher. And you kind of jogged my memory on something. I completely forgot Jackson State spring game was televised back in the spring. So when we were talking about that, so there was a couple of things that kind of jogged my memory. But other than that, I like your I like your 10 through 6. For me, I'm a baseball fan, so that 14-inning thriller with Alabama State and Southern, that was huge. That was a little higher for me because that was baseball being played at a very high level, and both teams you could not knock them out. I mean, if one scored and the other was able to answer, and I thought that's what made it so fun watching that go back and forth.
Yeah, that was wild when you talk about what was going on there. Mike, what do you think about my 6 through 10, top 10?
Looking at mine, the one that I had higher was I lumped this one together. I lumped the Good Morning America and the College Game Day together. That was like number 6 for me. And then I separated the Good Morning America going to FAMU. That was a little higher, but I thought that the appearance of Good Morning America and then turn right around College Game Day at Jackson State was huge, and then turn around right around second and completely independent. You had Good Morning America at the FAMU homecoming. Another one that I kind of lumped some in with the FAMU was the Stephen A. Smith, the First Take. They did a whole month of appearing at
Nice.
HBCUs as
Hey,
well.
we had one of our very own on that. You gotta have that in the top 10.
TSU was one of them, and you had one of our cohorts on the show. I got a picture of Charles right here.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, I saw you keep looking. You like, oh, yeah,
Yeah, really? Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I was like, man, I ain't get on the show. I'm like,
Hey, that was a good one. That actually ought to be number 1 now.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. With that being said, let me stick with you, Mike. What did I get wrong in terms of the top 10? What do you have in the top 10 that I did not mention that should be in the top 10, 6 through 7? We'll hold off if you have things 1 through 5. We don't want to spoil that for everybody. But 6 through 10 that I didn't have on there that needs to be in there. Tell me now.
The ones you didn't have were the First Take, their whole month of HBCU, and I also have in my top 10, at least 6 through 10. I have the Benedict season. I just have Benedict undefeated season. I don't have a special link, but I have the Benedict undefeated season. That's in my top. That's in 6 to 10.
All right, I feel that. Charles, what did I not get right in terms of 6 through 10 that needs to be in there that you want to stress for folks to understand? This was a top 10 moment. Again, I don't want to spoil 1 through 5. Hold on to that if you have that there. But 6 through 10 that needs to be in there. What do you say?
Yeah, I'm probably leaning a little bit more towards 1 through 5, so I don't have a problem with you 6 through 10. I think there are a couple of things that I know definitely I have in my first 5. So I think your 6 through 10 is pretty spot on in terms of where I'm thinking about teams and individuals in regards to, especially as we go from the spring getting into the fall.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Edwin D. Moore did the pop quiz, so I'm gonna give him some love. 6 through 10. He has at number 6. Man, he's tough. North Carolina Central wins the Celebration Bowl. He has that at 6.
Wow.
Oh, that was
in the 7, but he has the 8 College Game Day. He has that at 8. At number 9, SWAC baseball tournament. Very exciting again. I agree with you. That baseball, anybody that has any connection with baseball saw that game, was like, oh man, is somebody gonna win this game? It just kept going. Classic game. I give you much credit on that. 10, SWAC HBCU Gold Deal. Oh, he has it at number 10. Let's see if I have that on there. I like that, but I have it maybe a little higher. Let's see what your thoughts is. Good stuff. Mr. Moore, good job. Anybody else? Give me your top 10. I want to see some lists. I'll read it out. I want to hear what you had to say. Who is and who ain't SWAC did not make my top 20. I understand, Dr. Holmes. With that being said, let's get into it.
That's honorable mention for me.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I know it took everybody by storm. I know one group that is very happy about who is SWAC, which is the T-shirt market. Those T-shirt vendors for different schools, they did well because there were a lot of folks that came out with shirts. You had some institutions that bought shirts in bulk. And so those folks that do T-shirts did really well in terms of who is SWAC. With that being said, stickers will be right back after this break. We'll get into my top 5. We'll see what these gentlemen say, what you all say in your top 5. Edwin Moore gave his top 5 too, so we'll reveal that after the break and sneak that in there after I give my top 5 just to see how right I am. With that being said, stick with us. We'll be right back after this last break.
Novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids' apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter. Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach.
This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We have the professors back. We have quizzes galore. You know how we end the semester? Oh no, I'm sorry. This is the end of the year assignment right here. So we are giving you our top 10 moments. A lot of great dialogue, those in and outside the top 10. I would say at this point, the grades coming home for the winter break are good. I'm giving A pluses. I think people have done an excellent job. Even though you might not be as an A plus as myself, you at least get an A. I'm going to give you A's in terms of A for you, instead of my general F squares. I think you've been really good this semester, this year. So we're going to make sure you get into it. Let's follow up and see what goes on in these next 5. I love what Amos said. Fawcett, 6. And he has question mark, exclamation marks. He's befuddled. Are you serious? Double question mark. It's the HBCU championship. I laughed. I said, I feel you. I was just a little shocked. What W. Sherman Miller is in the building. Stephen Gate is watching. Shout out to Stephen Gate. Stephen, give us your top 10 list. I know you got one coming. You can spoil us a little bit or give us top 5 or something. Silas Edward McMorris is in the building. Who else we got in here? I want to make sure we give some love to Lonnie Shaw, Carol Keller in here checking us out. Appreciate all y'all getting in the mix, your top 10. Let's get in my top 5. Somebody mentioned this as a top 10. I had it as a top 5. Benedict defeats Allen to cap off an undefeated regular season, gets a bid, obviously, to NCAA, and gets the bye as they go straight into the second round. Tough matchup. Couldn't quite get it done in the playoffs as they get behind kind of early, and it slips away pretty fast. But you got to give a kudos to the wonderful season. Benedict, first time they win the SIAC in terms of getting it done, and they get it done in fine fashion, going undefeated. Kudos. We had the coach on here be recognized at the mid-major, Dr. Bill's mid-major HBCU champion, Coach Berry. Saw him at the Celebration Bowl in Atlanta as he was getting it in up there watching that game. He acknowledged me and waved, made sure, said, what's up going on? Again, he thanked us for the coverage and bringing him on there. Continued success to Coach Berry and the Benedict Tigers out of the SIAC. Yeah. With that being said, let's go to number 4. Jackson State women's basketball beats Alabama State, clinches second straight NCAA tournament berth, and go in there and give the Jesus scare out of LSU. Just that close to doing what many thought was unheard of. So I had them in top 5. I wanted to show the women some love. It stuck with me. And the comments she made really resonated, and that's probably why it gave me a little more 5, where she talked about speaking up for HBCUs and referencing really the expectations, knocking the doors, and the belief that we need to have. So she will forever, obviously, got a chance to interview her coming on the show before that. So I wanted to give some accolades to Jackson State women's basketball in terms of what they got done. At number 2, I have North Carolina Central wins the 2022 Cricket Celebration Bowl, Dr. Phil's HBCU Major Division Football Championship. Obviously, we had the coach to be recognized at the championship on the show right here. We had our very own Joshua Sims being able to get it come in and be a part of that interview session. And in terms of what that looks like, I'm going to hold off on my number one. I'm going to hold off and see if I can do it as a little tease, as we talked about Coach Oliver getting it done over there with North Carolina Central. So 5-2. Benedict defeats Allen, winning regular season undefeated, winning the mid-major championship for Dr. Cavil. Number 4, Jackson State women basketball tournament berth. JSU wins SWAC championship undefeated regular season, clinches celebration board. That was my number 3. Number 2 was North Carolina Central win 2022 cricket celebration bowl. Obviously football centric in a lot of ways, but it drives the needle. It's what a lot of people follow. It's the last thing, so usually the last thing obviously sticks with you a lot in a lot of ways. But that's my 5-2. Starting with you, Mike, what do you think about my 5-2? Tell me what needs to be out of there. Hold off on your number 1. I don't want that out there in the bag yet. We'll save that to the end as a tease. I want to see what your thoughts in terms of my 5-2. Anything that is in there that shouldn't, or something that you want to say must be in that 5-2.
No, your 5-2, Doc, is I gotta admit it is spot on. I mean, all of the events you mentioned are somewhere in my list. The Benedict, I think I was the one who had them from 6 to 10. I think you had them in your 5-2. But from what I can see, yeah. The Jackson State season, I had them as number 5, the women's, and I had kind of a 5A, a 5B, and I had Amisha Williams in her season. I think you had to distinguish that to me, and Charles can allude more to that. The season she had and her accolades separately from Jackson State, the season they had. So, but from what I can see, your 5-2 is spot on.
Before I get to you, Charles, Edwin D. Moore, his top 5-2, I'll give you that. I'll hold off on his one as well. Norfolk State basketball. 4 was JSU football undefeated regular season. 3, Fisk gymnastics. Big one. I like that. Snuck that in on us. He did admit that he hated that he didn't get Jackson State women's in there later after he thought about it after I released it. Number 2, he has FAMU volleyball. Dr. Holmes released his top 5. He has at number 5, Kadar in Weeks Hall of Fame just recently. I like that. Number 4, he has HBCU Gold. At number 3, TSU men. At number 2, Norfolk. And I'm not sure, I'm probably talking about men as well. And I hold 5 was Kadar, 4 was HBCU Gold. He tied TSU men with the HBCU Gold number 4. Number 3 was Norfolk, and number 2 was JSU women. Hold off on his number 1 for both those, and I'll give that to you. Charles, what are your thoughts on my 5-2? Anything that should be in there that isn't?
Well, let me start. With my 5 would have been Jackson State women's basketball. I think that was huge with regards to Tamika Reed, and they're going.
We on the same wavelength.
And Amisha Williams being a part of that, being a WNBA draft pick. Number 4 for me, and I think this was a huge one, was Shador Sanders, Travis Hunter, and Coach Prime on the cover of Sports Illustrated. I think that was huge, and for me, the 4B to that is Coach Prime being on 60 Minutes. That is a completely different audience that you are reaching out to, and that probably is. I wouldn't even say 4B. I'd probably say that's number 3 for me with regards to the exposure that HBCUs, Jackson State to a larger extent, got in regards to that exposure being on 60 Minutes, because that's a whole different audience that is focused now on HBCU athletics.
I would have put that. I'm glad you brought that up, and I have to give you credit on that. If I did it, I would have had it with my Good Morning America and Gameday, College Gameday, all in one puzzle. But it's good that you mentioned it because it needs to be out there. You snuck us a little bit. I see where you're going. Sports Illustrated, I must admit, did have that on there, but now you say it. Yeah, I can see where it needs to be top 10. I'm not sure if I go with your top 5, but I understand it is seminal, and I think it's challenged to throw it out. So I'm not going to do that to you in terms of what that looks like. All right. Before I get to my number 1, before I get to your number 1, number 1 that Dr. Holmes had was Celebration Bowl. in terms of what that looks like. So I thought that was pretty big. Edwin, let's see what Edwin says about his top 10. What did he put up there? Let me make sure I get to Edwin more in terms of his top 10. Did I miss over there? Did it slide up too much? Put it back out there, Edwin. What was your number one? We'll make sure we mention it. I'm going to save mine. I'm going to go back to you, Charles. What is your number one?
November 19th, Dr. Cavil, was the day all hell broke loose in the SWAC in football. That particular day, Jackson State defeated Alcorn, but you had Mississippi Valley knock out Prairie View. And you also had Alabama A&M knock out Texas Southern. That, as a fan, was a ridiculous weekend for me because when you thought Southern was pretty much knocked out of it back when Jackson State knocked them out, back when they played, and all of a sudden they vault these teams because going into that day, my thinking was Jackson State's going to probably play Prairie View in the SWAC championship, and then to find out, how things kind of evolved during the course of the day, especially with Texas Southern being right that close to getting to the SWAC championship game, and then for Southern to vault both teams, that day just sticks out for me. That was really high on my list as a fan.
Man, I like that one. I would have never done.
Wow.
But you're right. Now that you say it, I'm like, ooh, man, that was wild.
I try to forget that one.
Let me get Moore's out there. He had number one in North Carolina A&T track and field, so I did want to give his final love to him there. With that being said, Mike, without further ado, tease this out a little bit. What was your number one?
Yeah, let me first say, CB, that was a good one. That November, because Prairie View had one job. You had one job.
We talk about it all week. They had one job,
All right. My 1A and 1B, I didn't say
it was valid.
It was valid. 1A and 1B for me was 1A was the championship and specifically the ending of the game. And I have in quote fourth quarter overtime. The second one, the 1B, is the HBCU Go with Byron Allen. I think that was big for the HBCU college landscape. So that's my 1A and 1B.
We're thinking along the same lines because my 1A or my 1B was Curtis Simons actually coming on this program and taking us to class with regards to television rights and things of that nature with regards to HBCU Go and the SWAC. I thought it was phenomenal to sit back and listen and learn the inner workings of the way television is going to be working in the future for HBCU athletics. And then, of course, 1A is a Celebration Bowl. It had the same vibe. If I could go back to the SWAC championship baseball game, you were on the edge of your seat for it. The last play of the game for Jackson State to send that into overtime, and then to have that overtime action the way it happened, and take your hat off to North Carolina Central. They hit the bully in the mouth and they won.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of good stuff. Shout out to Edwin D. Moore. He's classic. He likes your Sports Illustrated cover. Was huge. I like his tie-in. And one thing it did do, it brought the memories back in terms of Eddie Robinson when he was on the cover, Steve McNair on the cover. Doug Williams Super Bowl win in terms of being on the cover. So it also brought a lot of homage to those that previously on the cover and had people really go back and forth. So great point again on Sports Illustrated. But my number one, you've all kind of mentioned this. I just thought it was big in terms of the financial impact. And we haven't even felt it yet. This is so significant. The financial impact was Byron Allen, the historic deal, HBCU Gold deal with the SWAC, the global distribution for the SWAC, and what it will achieve financially in terms of SWAC. And we're hearing, obviously, that this is going to be seminal in terms of MEAC, CIAA, and SIAC coming to the table in terms of getting some of this as well. But in terms of when it was announced and what we heard and what we've seen throughout the season, the production and how it got better, the quality, the HBCU Go, what it's going to bring for basketball in terms of the number of games, over 30, some contests, also in terms of some of these spring sports. So when you put all that together, Curtis Simon coming on the show, as you alluded to, and really giving us a breakdown in terms of what that looks like. I had to put that at number one. Obviously, Dr. Cavil, a professor, I'm going to lean on that side in terms of the business of sport, where we try to separate ourselves from a lot of those out there that talk HBCU sports. Not to say we're better, anything of that, but the fact that we do take that dive, I would be remiss if I didn't make sure that I had, number one, that HBCU Gold deal with Byron Allen being in the backdrop. Shout out to Dr. Charles McCullough, the commissioner, for getting it done in terms of SWAC. Obviously, we heard 10-year deal over $100 million in terms of what it looks like. Exact numbers are out there, but I won't say it until it's official release from the SWAC in that nature. But it is over $100 million. I can't say that for 10 years. Big deal. So that was my number one. I want to see what everybody thoughts in terms of what that looks like. Great comments. I want to do shout out to Brandon King that's joined us, come on the show representing Tennessee State. Getting some good articles out there in terms of what he's doing. And the fact that he says that his son jams to the intro. So any young man that has the ability to recognize the soulfulness, the hip-hop speed of the intro, I got to give a special shout-out. Hope he's had a great Christmas holiday. Shout out to Brandon King. Keep growing. Keep doing your thing. Shout out to all the lab listeners. Hope you had a great 2022 and even a better and more prosperous 2023. Theron Waters, I'm late. No problem. We'll make sure, because we're ending class, we'll give you a shout out. We'll make sure you get a chance to get your quiz in. We're giving the top 10 highlights of the year. So throw them down there and get us to us in terms of what that looks like. Chunk Hunts chimes in. HBCU was great this year in terms of what those. So shout out for all the lab. Newton Jackson in here. That's Dr. Jackson. Hope he's having a great new year. Appreciate all the support over the years. The continued support. Want to give him much love. With that being said, we'll close out. Roy, if you want to, you can either come on or say it through your volume. Tell us what your number one would be. Want to make sure we give you a little love as we close out the year. Usually you're behind the scenes, but I did want to acknowledge to see if you wanted to talk about at least your number one before we go out of here. Roy, did you want to share any of that?
It better not start with FAMU and end in Rattler.
I thought it was going to be the Orange Blossom class.
With that being said, he's being modest tonight, so we'll let him be there. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports. With Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, professors, I want to take this time of privilege and say thank you, gentlemen, for standing by me as we try to work this out. I know this takes an incredible amount of your time. Shout out to your wives in terms of supporting us and allowing you to do your thoughts. And as we tease Mike in terms of assignment, he's pulling extra yards like many of us out there, but he finds a way to get it done. Shout out to you. We're proud of both of you all, your children in terms of getting it done, getting in college. Hope those grades came back as you expected. I saw the smiles on your faces thus far. I imagine everything is going according to it and your money is going well. So I appreciate what you all bring to the table. Extremely important. With that said, look forward to discuss next week as we do it at the lab. We'll get into basketball season for the SWAC. Following week, MEAC, we'll get into some SIAC, CIAA, and even give you some love over the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference and some of those independent programs. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. That's DRKENYATTACAVIL. Again, that's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. DRKENYATTACAVIL. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter. That's Facebook and YouTube. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. With that being said, make sure you download my JBN, my BCSN. Check out those sites so we're running these contests. We'll make sure we give you some more information on the fundraiser. We want to get that information out there to support us however you can. Also, check out HBCU Nightly. Joshua Sims Sr., as they moved it from Wednesday to night, I'll be on there. Maybe get some good discourse. You want to get into a little further dialogue, that's a place you can catch me as well. With that being said, Charles?
Of course.
Mike?
Lecture.
Dismiss.